In this video, we're going to look at how to insert images into our HTML documents. And this is a very simple process. And we're going to start by, once again, defining a new site. And we'll call this LWD06. And let's actually click on the Advanced tab here and choose for the local root folder. From your project files folder, we'll go into Learn Web Development 06 and click on Select. Now you'll notice we have an images folder here, so we can define a default images folder in the next text field, and that's what I want to do. So we'll click on the folder next to that, and we'll just double click on images to go into that folder, and then click on Select. So we've done something a little bit extra here. We've added a default images folder. We'll click on OK, and when we do that, we see our site over here in our Files panel. And we can see our images folder. If we open that up, we can see that we have one image called header.gif inside that images folder. So let's open up index.html by double-clicking on it in the Files panel. And we see everything that we've worked on so far. And all I want to do is I just want to replace this title here with that image. So let's highlight this title and just hit backspace or delete to get rid of it. And in its place, we're going to put an image. Now up here on the insert bar, remember you might have your insert panel over here to the right, and if so, it looks a little bit different. You'll have a drop down list instead of tabs like we have up here, but here we have tabs, and we have some common things that we can insert. We have hyperlinks, email links, named anchors, which we'll talk about later, and here we have images and image placeholders. Now if we don't have an image available yet, we can put an image placeholder here, but if we do have an image, we can just insert the image itself. Let me go ahead and show you the placeholder. If we click on this down arrow here and go down to image placeholder, what we basically do is we give our image a name, we give it a width and height, and we can give a background color and some alternate text as well. And that will basically put a gray rectangle on our stage where the image is supposed to be. So I just wanted to show you that that is available for you. If you have a space where you know there's going to be an image but you don't have an image yet, you can use this dialog box here. I'm going to go ahead and click on cancel. And then we'll click on that drop down arrow again and just select image. And it's really as easy as that. All we need to do now is find the image, which is in our images folder, header.gif. We can see a little preview of it over here, and we can see the size 700 by 100 pixels, and click on OK. When we do that, it's going to ask us for some alternate text. And this brings up the idea of accessibility, and that's a very, very important topic in web design. There's tons of information out there on website accessibility, and the idea of accessibility is basically just allowing your content to be as accessible as possible by as many people as possible, or as many browsers, or as many types of devices that might be displaying your content as possible. For example, if your users are blind, if they can't see any of your images or things like that, then you want to supply some alternate text so that they'll know at least what that image was that was there in that place. So here for alternate text, all we really have in this is our header, and it has our logo in it. So I'm just going to type in learnwebdevelopment.com. And you can link to a separate website that has a long description, but that's not really necessary for this particular item. And so after we type in our alternate text, which I always want to encourage you to do, we'll click on OK. And once we do that, it inserts our image for us, and if we click outside of the image, we can see what it's going to look like in the context of our page. So we just have this cheesy little banner up here at the top. We have a title bar, and that really adds a lot to our page. It makes it pop out a little bit. And inserting images is really as easy as that. Now, you might not always want an image to take up an entire line of text. You might want text to flow around an image. And let's take a look at that. If we come down here to one of our paragraphs, let's click at the beginning of our first paragraph here, and let's insert an image. So we could go to this common tab on the insert bar again. However, I want to show you a different way that we can put an image in. If we open up our images folder, we need to refresh this because we now have a new image in there, and there it is. And this is basically just a smaller image that we're going to insert into our text here. And what we can do is we can simply drag this image onto the stage, and we'll drag it until our cursor's in front of if, and there we go. So now we're going to type in some alternate text for this as well, and this is just one of our products called Introduction to Dreamweaver CS4, which is what you're watching right now. So I'm going to type the title of that product in here, Introduction to Dreamweaver CS4. Click on OK, and it inserts that image there. However, it doesn't look all that good because the text is starting at the bottom of the image, and we kind of want our text to float around the image. Well, what we can do is we can click on this image, and there are actually two ways to do this. We could do this using CSS, or we can do this using the align attribute. The easiest way, obviously, is the align attribute. With that image selected, we could just come down here to our properties, go to align, and then change it to left. And when we do that, we see the text flows around it. Now we can also do this using CSS and using the float CSS property and tell it to float to the left, and it will basically have the same effect. And that might actually be a preferred way of doing it, because then you could put margins around it to space that text out away from it a little bit. And let's see how to do that. So let's undo what we just did. We'll go to Edit, Undo Set Alignment. So here we have it to the left again. And I'm going to edit the CSS for this. Now you'll notice that when we have an image selected instead of just a cursor in text, we don't have a CSS button down here in our Properties panel. However, we can use our CSS Styles tab or panel up here at the top in order to create some CSS for this. So with that image selected, I'm going to go to this little icon here that says New CSS Rules. So we'll click on that, and we see something familiar. It's asking for a selector type, and what I want to do is I want to apply this to a class. I don't want to apply this to all images. I want to apply this to all images with a class of left. So we're going to create a new class called left. So make sure that you have class selected up here. We'll type in left down here, and then we want to apply this in styles.css. So we'll click on OK, and the float property can be found in the box section here in the upper right hand corner here where it says float, and we want to float this to the left. We'll click on apply, click on OK, and we see that it still hasn't been applied yet because we haven't necessarily applied that left class to this image yet. But if we click on the image and then come down to our properties and change class from none to left, you'll see that it's now floating to the left. And we can add some margins around this if we want. So let's go back to our left property here, and we can double click on that to edit it. And what I want to do is go back to the box section, and we have it floating to the left, but I also want to add some margins to the right and to the bottom. Actually, the bottom's fine. We don't need margins on the bottom, but I do want to add a little bit of a margin to the right side of this image. And so we'll uncheck Same for All, and then under Right, I'm just going to type in 5, and then make sure that Pixels is selected over here to the right, or PX, and then click on Apply to see if that looks good. And yeah, that works well. It gives us enough space between the text and the image. So we'll click on OK, and there we go. So that's how you can insert images into your HTML files using Dreamweaver. So I'm going to save everything by hitting Control S, and we'll move on with the next video.